All right, everybody, welcome to Ether Bandit's Garage. Today we're going to be talking about the power steering in a John Deere 830. To start off, to take off this control arm, you get a floor jack and you take the nut off and you just press it up. After you have unbolted these 3 bolts, and that whole housing will lift off, but you got to take your suction line off, your pressure feed. I took the fuel return off, and then you have to take this whole piece off here. So you take I just put my instrument panel here because I don't want to unhook my water temperature. I did unhook oil pressure, however, and if you had a pony, you're gonna have to loosen the pony up and move it out of the way. Then you gotta hook throttle and everything. I did more than that to this tractor. Like, I've had the fuel tank off and the lift pump, fixing fuel leaks and everything. Anyways, I took the whole steering section apart separately, or took it apart on the tractor to make it easier for me to remove all this with my cherry picker. And so it's very simple to take it apart. You have 2 lines that go here, and then 3 bolts that hold this whole thing to this. It all has to come off, and you have to pick it up pretty tall because that shaft is so tall. And it's kind of a pain. I took all this apart because this O-ring is leaking and it was dripping out the bottom of the tractor. And that's why there's all this oil on the floor, honestly. It's from that power steering fluid leak. But we'll get it taken care of. Couple things to think of whenever you drain this out. I have collected probably several gallons worth of fluid. It goes everywhere. This thing had been filled up by somebody else with a bunch of power steering fluid stop leak. And so it's just a pain. Anyway, so to get into it, you flip this up, because this is the hydraulics on this thing are they're very interesting. So you gotta take all these bolts out. They're a 15/16. I've already had all this apart, so it's all coming apart easily for me. Whenever you take these 2 holes out, a lot of power steering fluid will come out because it's emptying this big cylinder. So once you remove those bolts, there's some that come from under here and a couple that go from top. You pop this loose. This big packing ring right here makes it pretty difficult. And there's also an O-ring. This O-ring was why my power steering was leaking in general. And then come over here to where this definitely did not just fall over. And let me put it back together right. Okay, so with how this works is, it is a big, come on, that goes there, this goes right here. So this is essentially a hydraulic cylinder that spins on a central axis and is square. Normally hydraulic cylinders are round. I really don't have any good examples here. We'd have to go survey the crowd. But anyways, they're normally round and they go up and down. This one, as you turn, whenever you turn, this steering actuator right here will put oil into either this reservoir or this chamber or this chamber. See, there's one hole where oil goes in or out, and there's the other hole. So as this thing turns, as you put pressure on your steering wheel, there's a spring on your steering gear, and it's gonna go back and forth, and it's gonna route oil to either the front or the back chamber. Which you can tell your steering arm is attached to this. So that way, whenever hydraulic pressure is applied here, it's gonna help turn it this way. And whenever it's applied on this side, it's gonna turn it this way. It's a very interesting design. That is just a stop essentially. Same for that. This is your fixed end, which I gotta rebuild all this because it's all, I mean, it's not really, not very tight. It's all loose. I have parts ordered, but John Deere, they really don't get in a hurry for their customers. And anyways, so that's the general gist of a John Deere. Well, I guess honestly a John Deere 2-cylinder power steering system. They all work like this, at least on the 630, 730, 830. I mean, that tractor doesn't have power steering. This one has GM on it, so to each his own, I guess. All right, we'll see y'all later. One more thing I want to mention is that all of these little, this used to be a square, but these packing guts are so brittle. I mean, they break so easily, and that's why it's not sealing, which is, I guess this would be the packings and this would be the hydraulic cylinder seal, which they aren't that bad. I mean, they still got some stretch to them, but I don't know, it'd be fine. But I'm replacing all this stuff anyways, because it's just gonna replace one thing. I'm gonna replace it all. And I mean, as for, I'm gonna have $80 in resealing this whole power steering unit, which in the grand scheme of things, pretty cheap compared to, I rebuilt a Ford 6600 one and it cost a little bit more than that. The nice part is you get a kit for those. For this one, forget about finding a kit. You have to go through the parts book and make your own kit.